Now let's continue by updating our layout for our article detail activity. The first thing we're going to need to do is create our custom toolbar. We'll do this by adding an app bar layout, give it an ID as well as a width and height. We'll then add a Android Support v7 widget toolbar, which is the actual toolbar underneath. This will also need an ID, width, and height, and we'll set the layout height to the action bar size attribute from Android. We'll then give it a style or theme from the Theme Overlay App Compat Dark Action Bar. This gives our text a white look over a dark action bar color. Now let's add a progress bar below our web view so we know when our page is loading. We'll also need to give this an ID and a static width and height size. Now that we've updated our layout, let's go into our article detail activity. Here we're going to call the Set Support Action Bar function from the App Compat activity. This sets the support action bar using a v7 toolbar that we added in our layout. The next thing we need to do is get a reference to the support action bar we just set. From here we'll call the Set Display Home as Up Enabled function and pass in true. This sets the back button on the left side of the toolbar next to the title. Now we need to handle when that back button is hit. We do this by overriding the On Options item selected and then checking if the item that was selected is the Android r.id.home. If that's the case, we call finish and return true. This is all we'll need to do for now on our article detail activity, but we'll be doing more wire up once we have some article data. The next activity we'll need to update is the search activity. Let's move over to the activity search layout and proceed with adding the app bar layout in toolbar just like we did previously in the article detail layout. We'll also give this an ID as well as a width and height like we did before. We'll use the same ID in this instance, so it makes it easier to use the same code that we did in our article detail activity code behind. We'll also still be using the attribute action bar size for our height and set the theme to the Theme Overlay App Compat Dark Action Bar. Now we'll need to add a recycler view, which is going to be used to display our search results when we're done getting them from the Wikipedia API. This will fill the layout width and height, so let's use the match parent setting. Over in the design view, we'll notice that we actually seem to have two toolbars. This obviously isn't what we want, however we'll notice that this is because it's not using the proper theme that we set in our manifest. We can select the App Theme No Action Bar and see that the result is what we want, one toolbar and the recycler view right below it. Now we'll need to add the search bar within our toolbar. We can do this by creating an Android resource menu. Let's move over and create a new menu resource file, and we'll call it the search menu. Let's move over to the text view and add our item underneath our menu. Give it an ID and set some other custom properties such as show as action equal to always and set the action view class to the Android Support v7 search view. We'll then give it a title of search. Combined with the rest of these properties, ensure that it is always visible in the toolbar. Now back over in our search activity, we're going to do some of the same wire up we did in the article detail with setting the support action bar and setting the display home as up enabled to true. We'll also once again override the On Options item selected function and ensure that when the home item is selected, we finish the activity and go back to the previous one. With this done, we're going to do some unique setup in order to get the search functionality to work. We're now going to override the On Create Options menu function. This is what's called whenever we're creating a menu based on a menu resource. So what we're going to do first is inflate the menu from the search menu resource we have. We can use the menu inflator.inflate call to do this. We pass in the menu we created and then the menu object that's passed in through the parameters. Once we get a reference to our menu, we can get the specific item we created by its ID. After that, we can get a reference to the Search Manager service by calling getSystemService and passing in the ID of the search service from our context. Then we'll get a reference to our search view from the action view we assigned to the search item in our menu resource, then set the searchable info to the current component. Now we'll set Iconified by default to false and request focus. This way it's expanded and is focused the second we start the activity. Lastly, we'll create an onQuery text listener object. This has two functions we can override internally, the onQuery text submit and the onQuery text changed. This is what allows us to handle submissions or when text is changed in the search bar. Later on, we'll use this to actually invoke our search from our wiki service to call to the API and get objects to update the view. And with that, we have our 3 primary activities with their layouts created and updated. In the next module, we'll create plenty more layouts for our fragments and our internal views for cards and list items.